Everybody kind of has their own club. My home club would be in Des Moines. That's kind of where I'm out of, where I really have gotten my start. And the way I get booked and stuff to go out and do a lot of other shows is because people see me in Des Moines.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a lost leader. On the other hand, I think we do well with it. It's part of the Spaghetti Works. We have a restaurant. We provide entertainment. And I wouldn't do it if it didn't work out for me.
Men and women of Iowa State swimming teams practice hard to be the best in their field, and this year members were even willing to shed some blood to improve their efforts. Iowa State is one of the few major universities in the U.S. now using blood lactate tests to set up an optimum training program for its swimmers.
Good evening. The National Severe Storms Forecast Center has issued a tornado watch for portions of southern and eastern Iowa. It runs from 5:45 p.m. until midnight tonight. Look out for the possibility of tornadoes, large hail, dangerous lightning, and damaging thunderstorm winds. The area is contained in a line from 70 statute miles north and south of Lime, 20 miles south of Ottumwa, to 20 miles east of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Counties included in Iowa are the following: in northeastern Iowa, Dubuque County; east central Iowa, Lynn, Jackson, Johnson, Jones County; southeast, Des Moines, Lee, Henry, Louisa, Jefferson, Van Buren, Keokuk, and Washington counties. Cities included in the watch area are Burlington, Iowa City, Washington, Cedar Rapids, Keokuk, Dubuque, Maquoketa, Fairfield, and Mount Pleasant. Once again, another tornado watch has been issued for the area roughly from Ottumwa south and eastern. We'll have more updates on the situation as it becomes available. We now return to Iowa Edition.
And suddenly I emerged from the pack as I used to be just like another kid, and then there was like something, oh, gee, Aitchison can do this, you know, and before I knew it, it's something that I was like addicted. I think life is funny. I find humor in about everything, and sometimes I feel very guilty of the fact that something is really probably not funny, and I can find humor in it. And when I was a kid, I was always playing jokes and stuff on people, but I wasn't like your obnoxious class clown. I was pretty quiet, to tell you the truth, but I would find humor in things and make fun of people and stuff behind their back. Maybe not make fun of them, but do satirical type of events. And I used to do impressions of all my teachers and stuff, and that's how I started to gain a bit of recognition from class members. And then there's a typical thing when the teacher's gone, you'll get up and do an impression of them, and they'll probably walk in on you and get you in trouble, send you to the principal's office once or twice. But as I look back, it was worth it. I think you have to keep a certain humbleness about what you do, because there's always somebody who's better than you are. There'll always be somebody who's better than you are. And you keep that in mind, and be happy for what you can do, and keep trying to get better all the time. I think I'm a firm believer in good things come to those who keep pushing ahead and pushing forward, and the doors will open if you push hard enough on them.
The doors Brent is pushing on are at comedy clubs across the nation. Brent calls the Des Moines Comedy Shop, located in the back room of the Old Market Spaghetti Works, home.
Well, the most obvious question at this point, having been open for about 8 months, is what is a comedy shop? And a lot of people really don't understand what it is that they're going to see when they go to a club or when they go to a comedy shop. And basically what we're doing is providing a different form of entertainment in town. It's live stand-up comedy. We have a group that does skit comedy. Don't Quit Your Day Job is a comedy group that's real popular here in town right now, that's been around. And I think most people just have questions as to what are they going to see. And I think the way that you have to come into it with an open mind and come out to have a good time. And if you're prepared to relax and have a drink or appetizers or whatever, I think you're going to enjoy yourself and have a good time. I think some people are in some ways almost scared of comedy. They're not sure what they're going to see when they walk in the doors of a club and what's going to happen. It's really not that mysterious at all. It's just a lot of fun.
Just a lot of fun? For the audience, maybe, but for the comedians, it takes a lot of practice to look easy.
Humor is very serious business, if you ask me. I've met several comedians that are nuts all the time. They never turn it off. They're funny people all the time. I've met some people that are on stage are just hilarious, and they're full of energy. When they get off stage, a little bit more down to earth. They're humorous people, but they're not going 110 miles an hour. They're more down to a normal pace type of person. I think a lot of people have to do that, or they just burn themselves out too quick. Myself, I do impressions, and it takes a tremendous amount of time to work on these impressions and get a voice down, to meet my specifications, let alone an audience specifications. So I work very, very hard on what I do, but when I get on stage, I want to make that appear like I'm having fun, like it comes naturally to me, like, hey, I just picked this up yesterday and I'm having so much fun with it. Once you join along and have fun with me.
You tape record everything that you do?
I do as much as I possibly can, because the fact of the matter is when a show is done and I feel good about it, and I get done and I sit down and that all wears off the next day, I bring out that tape recording and I play it and I analyze it. I take notes and I go, okay, this went over well. And sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised. Things went over better than I thought they did on stage. And a lot of times things didn't work that could work because I just had my timing off, or the joke needs to be rewritten or something like that. And so I'll change it around or something. But I think it's good to constantly be critiquing yourself. I think if you feel comfortable with where you are and what you're doing, totally comfortable, then you're going to get stale, and then you're going to start to falter. You've always got to feel the pressure of, got to get a little bit better.
When Iowa Edition returns, a look at humor as a serious business. Yet not everybody laughs at the same thing. Tickling your funny bone is the goal of the professional comedian. Humor is their job. And to them, humor is very serious business.
I can't say that it's really a question of why comedy in Des Moines. I think comedy is something that everyone enjoys, regardless of wherever you're at. Everyone has a sense of humor, and everyone enjoys laughing. Well, no, I wouldn't say it's a lost leader. On the other hand, I think we do well with it. It's part of the Spaghetti Works. We have a restaurant. We provide entertainment, and I wouldn't do it if it didn't work out for me. Right now, I mean, it's relatively limited. I'm not going to say that there is a lot of entertainers in Des Moines that are of a stature that can work across the country. These gentlemen here, Ben Hewlin, Willie Farrell, Brent Aitchison, are all of a professional caliber. Matter of fact, I believe all three of them have traveled extensively throughout the country and worked a lot of clubs. So, and likewise, the guys that come in here, I mean, this particular club, we're a comedy shop. We're a forum for comedy. It's a chance for the local people to get a chance to get on stage and try their luck.
Is it bother you? Let's look at the negative side a little bit, that most people think of stand-up comics as sort of that cheesy character at the burlesque show who came on between dancing girl acts. Is that...
Right. I think to an extent, stand-up comedians are always going to have that kind of over them. I think it's the fact that you walk out on stage and it's just you, and you might have a couple of props. Basically, it's just you and that audience, and you're going to make them laugh, or you're going to try to make them laugh. And there's not a huge orchestra. Comedians generally don't wear tuxedos. It's kind of like, in a way it's glamorous, in a funny way it's glamorous, but in a realistic way, it isn't really that glamorous of a bit of show business.
This brings us to an interesting premise. Who determines what is funny? Well, to find out, we went to a scholarly person to find out how funny is determined.
What is it that makes something funny?
It's a question that people have been trying to answer for about 2,500 years, and scholars from Aristotle to Sigmund Freud have disagreed on it. So when I tell you what I think makes it funny, I'm simply saying this is one answer, and certainly not the only possible answer. But I would say, very simply, the psychology of all humor can be explained in two words: playful aggression. All humor is at the expense of somebody or something. We always laugh at something.
Is funny, or are things different in different places around the world?
Okay. The technique of all humor is distortion of familiar material. In other words, essentially, what we laugh at is the same psychologically all over the world, but it is different in the specific thing all over the world. In America, we make jokes at the expense of President Reagan or Governor Branstad or a president or a military officer, or whoever is in power. In other countries, they make fun of whoever is the leader there. I spent several months in the communist countries of Europe studying humor under communism, and I found that those countries are just jumping with oral humor at the expense of communism and of their communist leaders. Most people in those countries resent communist dictatorship, lack of freedom, and so on, but there's nothing they can do about it. And what they have done is create an enormous fund of jokes by which they express this criticism and resentment. Now, you asked, are jokes the same all over? A joke told in Poland would make fun of a Polish leader. It wouldn't be funny to an American because he doesn't know the person. But here's one Polish joke they told me in Poland that I think Americans can appreciate. For example, a member of the Communist Party who's very loyal to the party is trying to persuade his little son how good communism is. And he's saying to the little boy, you know, when I was a little boy, we used to stand in long lines waiting to buy meat. And the boy says, what is meat? You see? That's funny anyway.
But the business side of comedy says you have to be funny here and now. And when Iowa Edition returns, a look at the comedians.
I don't know what we would have done without the Red Cross. Sometimes it's a disaster and the Red Cross is there. Other times it's training people in water safety, first aid, and CPR. I am a firm believer in the American Red Cross because of the many services they provide to our community. Learn more about these valuable services and join me in becoming a Red Cross a good neighbor. Being there when needed is what Red Cross is all about.
Let's get cynical for a minute. How funny could anybody be in Des Moines, Iowa? If somebody was really funny, wouldn't we find them in New York or L.A.?
I've addressed that question quite a few times to people. A lot of people say, if you're funny, you're in New York or Los Angeles. Funny people are not in the Midwest, and that's why I think the club in Des Moines is going over so well. People are going out, and they're being entertained, and they're finding out that the comedians that are performing in Des Moines that are from the Midwest are just as funny as the ones on the coast. Now, I can tell you, I've seen comedians in New York, and I've seen comedians in Los Angeles, in San Diego, out on the coast working, and I find there's a lot more comedians out there, but I don't think that the humor is any higher level than it is here in the Midwest.
The majority of young comics or guys that are beginning in it, guys that have been doing it for 5 years or 10 years or just 6 months, they want to do better. And in today's clubs, they're going to find it, and they do find it very hard to work blue humor. It doesn't work. You're not going to get on the Johnny Carson show. You're not going to get on national television doing that type of humor. I think you pick a lot of that up there, and I know HBO provides a chance for people to see nightclub type humor. That isn't, and depending on the entertainer and where the club is, you might see some raw humor on television. That's not the type of thing that we do here. I don't think that the majority of the clubs in general do that. Each club has its rules, and when they book an entertainer, we tell them what goes and what doesn't go. They can either live with that or they can't. And most guys, like I say, have the aspiration to move on to bigger and better clubs, and they're not going to get anywhere by doing that.
Ben Ulan started by doing magic tricks table to table. He is now the resident MC and comic at the Des Moines Comedy Shop. Ben admits to having overcome at least one major obstacle.
For me, it was probably fear of my material being funny. It's easy to be a magician because you're working behind the props and the basic, there's something to hide behind, elements. But coming up with your own material and original things, it's kind of a scary thing to jump out and try something for the first time. I've always liked the idea of having someone who ties the show together, make it a consistent show. So the fact that I do very visual things and have definite applause points, definite, stops where people applaud and think that was great, makes me a real good MC type entity for the show.
Willie Farrell is another Des Moines talent on his way to making good in the world of comedy. And Willie believes that many a truth is told in jest.
I'm telling the complete truth. That's what it's all about. I may wink and tell you it ain't for real, but it's for real. You know it as well as I do. I say things that people think but don't say. And thank God I'm a comedian, otherwise I don't think I'd get away with it.
And the head cockroach comes up and he says, hey, Joe can't even go outside, that place is so smoky. You better go to fire and make something burn.
10 years ago, you couldn't perform stand-up comedy in the Midwest and make a living. You can now. As far as being what you consider top-notch Carson, David Letterman, you have to go out to the coast for that. But you can stay in the Midwest, Iowa, Missouri, Minneapolis, whatever, Chicago, and make a living at it. And it all depends how high up the plateau you want to get. Being a guy starting off, you're going to get, a lot of times you're going to walk into a blind situation where you're not going to know what you're going to get. Someone will give you a call and say, we want you to play our room, we're going to give you so much money, and show up. And so you show up, and it could be anything. You could be opening for a stripper, you could be playing for a bunch of elks, you know, Shriners. You don't know. And the thing about it is, to make yourself a better person and make yourself a professional, you play it. And good or bad, you get the most out of it.
Oh, we certainly take it seriously, but there's the one element that is necessary in that seriousness is that we all have a good time.
So it's time to size up the audience, don't you think? Have you seen this kid? There's just something scary about a 16-year-old who cannot make change for $1.
He's got to be the biggest, the meanest, the strongest, the ugliest looking gentleman here, and then he volunteers.
Nationally, people are feeling good enough to laugh. So it's a good time to be a comedian. And the Midwest is now a good place to be funny.
If you love sports, then
Thank you, Colonel. Did I do that all right?
I'm sorry to have been so unmilitary, but I couldn't help it.
It's all right, kid.
No, it isn't. Just childish. But you see, during the Blitz, you could do something. You could shoot his stupid out from under him or whatever. And those things, they just have a German engine.